Good morning. I have my morning coffee. I'm ready to go. And today I want to talk about the lunar month from June 14th today through July 14th and how it will probably impact Donald Trump. So let me share my screen and we can get started. This always takes just a couple of minutes, a few seconds. I have to get rid of some panels so I can see what I'm doing. And we're ready to go. So this is the lunar month for Trump, June 14th through July 14th. And I'll begin with a review of my expectations for last month and what was observed. And I noted last month that much of this lunar month will be good financially and healing for Trump for both body and reputation. That's with trancing Pluto trine natal Neptune in the second house and trancing Jupiter conjunct natal Saturn and Venus, which have a lot to do with his reputation, his status. Jupiter sextile midheaven, that helps too. And trancing Chiron, trine his natal ascendant, bringing him a lot of healing and being a very good lifeline for him. Nonetheless, from the last week of May through the end of the lunar month, Trump may be more delusional than usual. That's due to trancing Neptune in 8th house, opposite natal Neptune in 2nd house. That can also impact finances, somewhat shady deals, perhaps. It can involve 8th house things, which are other people's money, death, transformation, and the viewpoints of others. An aspect of sort of the opposite of Venus and Taurus. Venus is naturally related to the 2nd house, represents the values of individuals, and the 8th house is the values then of others. Also, wounding from past actions will begin in the last week of the lunar month and will continue into September. And that is the result of trancing Saturn in the 8th house opposite natal Chiron in the 2nd house. Okay, now here is what actually happened right before the start of the lunar month. Trump had a high, little misspelling here, profile visit to China. So that kind of boosted his look as a president. I asked artificial intelligence to describe Trump's mood over this month, and it was described as dominant seeking, narrative hungry, thin skinned, and visually and symbolically oriented, trying to dominate others, trying to construct a narrative that portrayed him favorably. Of course, he's very thin skinned, and he's been looking for all these outer symbols from his name on the Kennedy Center, which was just taken off, to building this triumphal arch and other things. Okay, Trump has made several false, grandiose, or delusional statements this month, including that the cognitive test he took was an intelligence test, that his anti-weaponization fund, which is now kaput, not going to happen, has made precedents, that gas prices are coming down substantially, haven't seen that yet, that consumer confidence is way up. That makes me laugh. That an agreement with Iran on handing over their enriched uranium and opening the Strait of Hormuz is imminent. That's a bit of an exaggeration. And that the ballroom, the triumphal arch, and the painting of the reflection pool are all needed. Additionally, he has mused about making the stage for the White House UFC fight that is happening this very evening. He mused about making that a permanent structure. Wow. Intelligence help us all. Financially, Trump has benefited from federal tax immunity settlement. Another little misspelled word. Granted on May 21st, that may, oops, this one save him more than 600. Wow, this sentence is full of typos. So that should be 600 million in federal taxes, not $600. So, yes, I will clean up this slide again later. Trump was given a clean bill of health by his doctors. Of course, I take all that with a grain of salt. And in the last week, Trump walked out of a Meet the Press interview, had his name removed from the Kennedy Center, and has had Republicans oppose him on Iran and the White House ballroom and the $1 billion payout fund and Ukraine aid and Russia sanctions and the nomination of Bill Pulte as acting director of national intelligence. So, wounding from past actions beginning in the last week. Yep, we're starting to see that. Okay, there is Trump's natal chart for those who are interested or those who need his birth time and birthplace. And here's an overview of major transits for the month. Now, the two good things are Chiron trine his ascendant and Pluto trine Neptune, which will last throughout most of the lunar month. I'm using somewhat tight orbs here, so when you actually look at where the planets are, you might say, well, that's close enough for me. I think that's lasting longer. But with these tight orbs, transing Chiron will be trine ascendant exactly on June 17th. And that is going to be a very strong lifeline for him throughout the month, giving him a lot of personal healing. Pluto trine Neptune, since Neptune is his second house, that can help his financial situation, his resources. But there's also a dark side to it. Pluto can be things that he wants to keep hidden ways of making money. Neptune can also suggest some chicanery involves some deception of some sort. Now there's one other thing I should mention that is beneficial, and that is this Jupiter conjunct Venus. And Venus rules his 10th house of status, so this is very good for his reputation. And that is active from the start of the lunar month. It was active before, and it continues for almost the rest of June, not quite the end of June with the tight orbs that I'm using. But this plus Jupiter conjunct Saturn, that helps his structure, his discipline, his reputation. Friends come to his aid to help him out. So it's often the case in Trump's chart that every time something bad is happening, his chart is structured so that something good happens at the same time. And that seems to be, from an astrological perspective, why so often he has failed upward. He fails and moves up rather than moving down. Now, the two primary things he has to worry about are one, transing Neptune in opposition to natal Neptune. That is continuing, maybe getting a little stronger this month. That is going to continue for quite a while. That can make him more delusional. Also raises the possibility of another assassination attempt. Secret Service makes those things much less likely to succeed. And the transing Neptune going through his 8th house, that house also has to do with other people's money and resources. So we always try and keep an eye on the way in which the money of others is moving into Trump's pockets. Now, the most serious thing is this transiting Saturn in opposition to natal Chiron. And that is getting stronger. It will be strong throughout the rest of the summer. And that can affect him financially since Chiron is in the second house. Hence, it can restrict the flow of money or other resources. It can cause him wounding in other ways too. Now, one of the interesting things is he will be going through an opposition of Saturn and Chiron by transit. But if you look at the USA chart, you could take any of the July 1776 charts. They all have an opposition between Saturn and Chiron. If you look at the chart for Ukraine or the chart for Russia, both of those charts have an opposition between Saturn and Chiron. So what is going on here with Trump, starting now, continuing through all of July and August, what is going on with Trump is going to have a resonance with the USA chart and also the charts for Ukraine and Russia. So, what does that mean exactly? How is it actually going to play out? That I don't know. But there is going to be this connection, and certainly we think of the president's chart as being very connected with what will happen to the country. And there is a suggestion here that something about the way in which Trump is going to have to experience some wounding or return of his karma. That will also impact America, no big surprise, but additionally impact Ukraine and Russia in some way. And of course, I should mention there is an outside chance that this could be a period, not of wounding, but of healing and enlightenment for Trump. That would be the best side, the beneficial side of Chiron, and Trump could be reaping good karma, conceivably. That is always a possibility, but I don't think it is very much a probability. I don't think it will be likely to happen, and that wounding of some sort, restrictions of some sort, are much more likely. This could also affect his health, since Saturn, in addition to other things, it's the ruler of his sixth house of health. Now, there's a few other irritations going on. The lunar nodal axis is going to be conjunct as ascendant descendant. That can make life more intense for him. That is going to last for a while. And Saturn will be making a sesquiquadrant to his ascendant in the last week of the lunar month. And before it's all over, we have Jupiter semi-square Uranus and the lunar nodal axis making a sesquiquadrant to natal Chiron. That could intensify wounding that will begin toward the very end of this lunar month. The intensification of the wounding, that is. Okay, so those are some other things coming up. And we see that if you look into the next month, that around 26th, 27th, 28th, we have some difficult aspects peaking at those times. So when we get into July, into the lunar month, which goes from about mid-July to mid-August, those will be dates to keep an eye on. Okay, so he's got the difficulties, he's got the lifelines that will be thrown to him. Now, if we look at transits primarily involving the inner planets that will become exact in this month, we see the following. Just looking at these inner planet transits, from about June 17th through June 22nd, things look pretty good for him. Uh, there's a few things that might be tense. June 20th, when Mars is conjunct his midheaven, expect him to be more combative. And on June 21st, when Venus is conjunct his Pluto, that will be interesting to watch since Venus, in addition to being that drive to reduce tension, which is somewhat antithetical to the stress that Pluto can cause, Venus also rules his 10th house of status. So, will there be a transformation of his status? If so, will it go down or will it go up? This suggests that he might really have a strong desire for power on June 21st. So, let's see what he does. On June 24th, we have Mars square natal Mars. So that can definitely make him more combative and angrier. And on the 28th, transing Mars will be squaring his ascendant. And recall that in his natal chart, he pretty much has Mars on the ascendant. So from the moment that transing Mars makes a square to this until it makes an exact square to the ascendant, things are going to be kind of tense and he will be more combative than usual. And that's going to run from June 24th through June 28th. And in between, on the 27th, he will have Sun square Neptune. And that is going to be interesting too, in that he will have transing Neptune over here in the 8th house. And when transing Sun makes a square to its natal Jupiter, it's basically going to be completing a T-square with Sun, Neptune, and Neptune. So that could be extra delusional time for him. So June 24th through June 28th may not be the best of times for him. When we get to July, on July 6th, he will have Sun square Chiron. That is a day when he needs to be careful about wounding. But the rest of the month, going about July 7th through July 12th, he has mostly favorable aspects, one square, but it's Sun squared Jupiter. That's not the worst, most difficult square to deal with. He's more likely to go overboard on something around this time, around July 9th. Or, yeah, that is July 9th. But Venus will be conjunct his ascendant, and that will help make things more pleasant for him and possibly elevate his status a little bit. Okay, so that is the transit overview. Now let's take a look at the new moon, the first quarter moon, full moon, third quarter moon, and then the next new moon. And many things that we see in this chart are going to continue throughout the month. And we've talked about a lot of them already. Neptune, transing Neptune, opposite natal Neptune continues. Transing Saturn, opposite natal Chiron continues. This can cause a lot of delusional thinking, a lot of restrictions on finances and resources, and maybe condemnation from other people's values. But as we get into July, this Saturn Chiron aspect, again, it lasts for 2 months because Saturn is going to slow down, turn retrograde. So this can be 2 months of restriction for him. And there's the looming possibility of health problems since Saturn rules Trump's 6th house. So those are the difficulties he has to contend with. Delusion, even treachery or assassination attempts or death or other people's money in some way, and a lot of restrictions on what he wants to do with his own resources and finances. We have the trancing lunar nodal axis is going to be making a semi-square and a sesquiquadrant to his natal Jupiter down here. So that can intensify some things a little bit, and he could go overboard, expand things too much under the influence of Jupiter. And trancing Uranus is at the same time making a sesquiquadrant to natal Jupiter. That can result in some unexpected things happening. And it's interesting in how many ways we have seen his second house being activated in this coming lunar month. So we'll have to keep an eye on all the various meanings of the second house and all the various meanings of the eighth house to see what happens to him. On the good side, he has Jupiter conjunct his natal Venus. That is very beneficial for his status, his reputation, since Venus rules that 10th house. And Jupiter conjunct Venus by itself is a very feel-good moment, a time when you feel free, you feel unencumbered. Pluto trine his Neptune, trancing Pluto, that is. That, again, activates the second house, but in a more beneficial way. So I expect financial things to also benefit him. He can be wounded in some ways and benefit in other ways at the same time. Both those things can be true and can happen. But the good stuff that happens to him, it may be hidden. That's part of the nature of Pluto. It may involve some deception. That's part of the nature of Neptune. But Chiron, making a trine to his ascendant, that is going to last throughout the month. And that is a real lifeline that will bring him healing in body and soul to some extent. Okay. That actually is going to set the tone for the month. We have a lot of this stuff that repeats. When we get to the first quarter moon, we see a lot of the same, but also some more beneficial aspects. So we still have transiting Saturn opposite natal Chiron. Now we have transiting Mars conjunct the midheaven. It looks like that was exact a little bit before the first quarter moon. So that's going to make him more combative. We've got transiting Neptune opposite natal Neptune. And even though it's not showing up down here and with my aspect lines because I'm using really tight orbs, but with Mars at 25 degrees Taurus here and natal Mars at 26 degrees Leo, most people would say, well, that's close enough for a square. So he's going to become very combative sometime during the first to second week of this lunar month. Now, on the good side, he does have that transiting Pluto, trine natal Neptune, transiting Chiron, trine his natal ascendant. The sun is now going to be making a sextile to his ascendant, as in the sky, it makes a sextile to transiting Chiron. So we get a little minor grand trine here, which can be very beneficial to him. And like I said, this is what's happened to him all his life. He has some very hard aspects going on, but at the same time, beneficial aspects that throw him a lifeline so that he always seems to fail upward. Let's see, trancing Venus will be conjunct his natal Pluto, with Venus ruling the 10th house. He is probably going to have a strong desire or sense of power on this day. This could be something that impairs his reputation, possibly, but knowing Trump, it might be that he just feels empowered. He tries to do more than he is legally allowed to do as president. Let's see. Trancing Mars will be making a sextile to his natal Venus at this time. So that is going to be a lifeline for his reputation and being able to take various actions and get away with it. And trancing Mercury will be conjunct to Saturn. So at the start of this month, he's going to be very focused on his control of things. Okay, sorry, not at the start, but at the first quarter moon, he's focused on his control of situations. So that's how it is looking. Let me go back to the new moon for a second. Let's see, Mars is just approaching his midheaven. I'm curious in particular about his new moon. That is today. This is also his birthday. His solar return actually occurred on June 13th, but it's going to be pretty similar to this chart, except for the moon, which will move on a bit. Uh, but things that we see in this new moon chart, they are going to be going into effect today. Of course, he is getting criticism and has gotten it for his UFC gladiator type brawl that he is having on the White House lawn. Okay, let's move on to the full moon. And here we have Mars square ascendant, Neptune opposite Neptune, Saturn opposite Chiron, the lunar nodal axis conjunct his ascendant descendant, Pluto trine Neptune, Chiron trine ascendant. The only new thing is we have Mercury conjunct Venus, and this represents things going well for him. It helps his left brain feel more relaxed. His analytical side is going to be having a good time on this day. This could also relate to negotiations or talks that the United States is involved in, and also commerce and trade for America. Surely everything with Iran, for instance, is not going to be decided this very day. And so there may be more negotiations, talks that Trump is feeling good about at this time, at the full moon on June 29th. When we get to the third quarter moon, again, a lot of these aspects are enduring, trancing Neptune opposite natal Neptune. But now for the Saturn-Chiron opposition, the moon is part of that. And trancing Sun is square not only transiting moon, but also natal Chiron. So it is forming a T-square on this day. So there may be something particular that breaks on or around July 7th that could cause him wounding financially or otherwise. And Saturn will be making a sesquiquadrate now to his natal ascendant. That's becoming suddenly very exact. So that is going to put more restrictions on his life too. But he still has these good lifelines of Chiron, trine the Ascendant, Pluto, trine Neptune. Trancing Venus is going to be conjunct natal Mars. So whatever happens, he will probably be counterpunching and he'll feel good about it, and he may do that successfully. And trancing Mercury is going to be conjunct his natal Saturn. I think we had that last time. Or no, it was conjunct his natal Venus. And Mercury is going to be making a sextile at the same time to his midheaven. So something in talks, something left brain, something going on which will be beneficial to his reputation and to his discipline in the way that he is structuring things. Let me go back here just a second. Look at Mercury's movement throughout. Okay, we can see that at the time of the first quarter moon, Mercury was making that conjunction with natal Saturn, and in between the first quarter and the full moon, it turns retrograde. So this is something beneficial for this week from first quarter moon to full moon. Saturn will just be moving from Saturn to Venus and then turning retrograde, and we'll be picking up Venus and Saturn again. So look at what sorts of things happen with Trump from the first quarter, June 21st, to the full moon on June 29th. And that may tell us something about what is going to happen during the second part of this month. Okay, so we've talked about the third quarter moon. We see much of the things that were present at the start of the lunar month just continuing throughout this month. And then we get to the next new moon, where we have still trancing Saturn opposite natal Chiron, trancing Neptune opposite natal Neptune. Of course, for me, the whole question is, in this lunar month, by how much and in what ways will Trump be wounded? And by how much and in what ways will Trump look even more delusional or be touched by death or transformation in some way? And the lunar nodal axis is still conjunct his ascendant and descendant, so that is making this month a little bit more intense for him. And the trancing lunar nodal axis is now making a semi-square and a sesquiquadrate to his natal Chiron, so that can exacerbate whatever wounding is going on. And trancing Saturn will be making a sesquiquadrate still to his natal Ascendant, so he's still feeling some restrictions in life. Conceivably, this could all be related to issues involving Iran continuing throughout the next lunar month for him. But he does have Chiron still strongly square his ascendant, and the sun and the moon are going to be conjunct his natal Saturn, and I expect that that will probably be beneficial for him, that this will help him be more disciplined and more focused on what is going on, and that will set perhaps a good stage for the next lunar month with regard to Donald Trump. So again, he's got some hard aspects we're going to be keeping an eye on, but he also has some beneficial aspects. which can throw him a lifeline, and those long-lasting beneficial aspects can be like a get-out-of-jail-free card. That is going to be the theme for this lunar month for Trump. And during the month, there will be periods where things go a little better and periods where he may have more frustrations and setbacks of one sort or another. Okay, so here's kind of a summary. The lunar month will begin well for Trump, tracing Jupiter conjunct natal Venus. Nonetheless, Trump will be susceptible to wounding, financial and otherwise, throughout the lunar month, tracing Saturn, the 8th house, opposite natal Chiron in the 2nd house. However, trancing Chiron will throw him a lifeline and help him heal. Trancing Chiron trine natal Ascendant. The second 8th house axis will be further stimulated by trancing Neptune, which could lead to deception issues involving the resources of others, Trump's money, treachery, and or delusional thinking. That's trancing Neptune in the 8th house, opposite natal Neptune in the 2nd house. Still, I expect him to continue to prosper financially, even if through hidden means and deception. And that is based on trancing Pluto, trine natal Neptune, which of course is in the 2nd house. Okay, that is the end. Let me stop sharing here. Okay, and I and my coffee are back. So that ends this presentation on what Trump will probably have to deal with in this new lunar month from June 14th through July 14th. And this time, at my wife's suggestions, instead of doing one long video, I've broken this up into 3 parts. So I have the lunar month for the world, the lunar month for America, and the lunar month for Trump. So I hope you listen to all 3. I hope you find all 3 interesting and informative. And a month from now, we will talk again and we'll see what actually happened during this upcoming lunar month from today through July 14th. But for now, I'll just say so long and be well.